Do you ever get annoyed at the way you go see a therapist and all they ever say is, why don't you guys talk about it? Let's talk about that today on the Man Space. Welcome to the Man Space podcast. We're your hosts, Doctors Matt Brown and Rob Porter, and clinical therapist Mike Porter. Ta-da! All right, now ready for the next part? We're starting right in this, Mike. Get ready.
I'm ready.
Welcome, spacemen. We have a special guest today. Loyal listeners will know him as Mike. Not to be confused with our mascot of a Mike or the jellyfish that was Mike. This is the Mike. Hi, Mike.
Hi, Rob.
Mike, before we start into this, although this is the kind of thing where I should be like saying out loud, like, this is banter time. And then later I'll be like, this is talk time.
I feel like if we have to say it, then what does that say about us?
We should probably make it so that in the podcast, people could like go and clip ahead.
Like that there's
a way to do that, right? Like that there's a marker
that says this is.
You can do it on YouTube. Yeah, I don't know if you can do it on any like podcast platform.
There's got to be a way.
Just give them a time point.
That's true.
Jump to
20 minutes and 35 seconds is where we actually start talking about stuff.
That 30-second skip.
Mike, first, since we don't yet have a loyal fan base in Kansas City that I know of.
That I know of either, so.
Fill us in. What's it like living in, we'll say, northern Kansas City?
That is where I live. I live in, I believe they call it the Northlands.
The what?
The Northlands. Northlands.
Do you have some sort of like medieval map for the city?
Right?
It's after the answer this.
We're north of right. Come and claim him if you want him. You can claim him. We're north of the river. Is I guess why they call it the Northlands.
Northlands.
Is that like if you say north of the river, it's like, oh, you're north of the river. It's like, oh, you're north of the river.
Well, we don't know yet, right? Like, part of us kind of thinks it's like, oh, you guys live in Liberty. Okay.
Liberty Bibberty.
Liberty Bibberty. Last one out of Liberty City. Burn it to the ground.
I know. Too bad it's not called Liberty City.
I know. Well, it is in my head so that I can
Florida?
say that.
Anyway.
No, it's, I don't know. It's weird. We don't know any, like Jen and I were talking about this on our way somewhere, I don't remember where, that we, like, for the first time in, I don't know how long, we have no support system here. Like, Texas is the closest we came because for 9 months when we got there, you were still at Tech, Rob.
Yeah.
And so there was that 9 months where it was just kind of Jenner and I on our own, but like we saw you at Christmas, we saw you, right? Like a handful of times. Away. Yeah. In between. So it wasn't really the same. And it was the realization like, no, we literally know nobody here.
That's
and
weird.
It is weird. Like it's interesting to watch my daughters kind of react to it. It's weird. I don't know. It's a little more uncomfortable than I thought it would be.
Oh.
Just realizing like, oh, right. Like, I mean, I guess we could call up random people from church and be like, hey, do you guys want to like play games or something? But we don't have people that we can just call up and be like, hey, let's go out.
Mm-hmm. I mean, maybe you just have to, Mike. You don't have the luxury of not doing it.
Well, evidently that's true. Like I'm about to tell my daughters, like we've, let them have a couple of weeks to settle in. And it's like, all right, well, time to start forcing yourself to be social because you can't keep doing this.
If it makes you feel any better, you've heard this story before. My old neighbor he joined a bowling league. And I was like, oh, you like bowling? He's like, no, I just needed some way to make friends. It's like, oof.
Yeah.
You picked bowling, huh?
Well, he wanted people who weren't going to be too active.
I'm offended on behalf of the dozens of bowlers out there all over the world.
All of which happen to listen to our show, I'm sure.
Tell us our topic. Dig us in.
So, well,
let's talk about.
Nope, I got nothing.
It's been a good one.
Well, no.
Catch us next time on the Man Space.
On the Man Space. Yeah. No, I was talking to a friend, And as therapists and on this show, right, we will often encourage people, look, go have a conversation with your spouse, right?
That's your favorite phrase, I will say.
It is
You'll
because
say, I say this all the time, have a conversation.
right. Which is right, like we'll actually even do it in our office, right? Turn to your partner and say whatever.
These words exactly.
Right. It always works great.
Exactly.
Which for non-therapist listeners, a little peek behind the curtain. When we do that, you're thinking, yeah, he had me turn and talk to her. And we're saying, I did an enactment.
And we're thinking too, that changed everything. And
Yeah.
2 times this week, I've had clients say, you said this thing to me on the way out. And actually, I think I've told you guys I did research back at Tech.
Yeah.
And we found that the things that clients would identify as most significant was like, he just kind of patted me on the shoulder on the way out and it felt like it changed everything. It's like, what? I did this really amazing enactment. Anyway,
I had
Continue,
you
Mike.
turn and talk.
yeah, you used my words exactly. Those words are what saved your marriage. Nah, you gave me a high five. That felt really good.
But so I've been talking with a friend of mine, and we were just, he said he said he felt like every therapist always just said go talk to go talk to your spouse, go talk to your spouse, go talk to your spouse, and he goes, I do, and it doesn't work. like I get shut down, or I get dismissed, or I get this or that, and as I thought about it, I thought, yeah, that okay. Like I couldn't argue with him because we all have talked to people where we've watched it happen sometimes, right?
Mm-hmm.
In our office with a couple, one of them will start to say something. We'll watch the other person shut them down right there. Now, when we're working with the couple, that's great because we can then kind of identify it. But here's where this kind of, as I was pondering like what my friend said, here's what kind of got stuck in my head was, we know we can't control the other person. Like we spend a lot of time telling people, look, you got to identify the things you can control and you got to focus on those because you can't control them. You can't force them to change. You can't force them to see you in a different way. You can't force them to express love to you in the way that is meaningful for you. And I thought, okay, then what are we doing?
Like
My whole career
Mike's
is a sham.
existential crisis as he moves to liberty and contemplates therapy.
I mean, what is it? And so the thing I wrote down as I was thinking about this is I just said, like, what are the benefits then as we sit, and especially me, as we sit and tell other people like, hey, go have a conversation with them about this. What are the benefits of it, right? Because we can't really sell the idea of, look, if you go have this conversation with your wife is going to think differently.
Mm-hmm.
If you go and are vulnerable with your wife, she will be vulnerable back. No, not necessarily.
Yeah, you don't. I'm assuming you don't say. I don't say that.
Well, no, I don't.
Okay.
Like I will tell them, right? Like, look, if you do this often enough, you're indicating to her that you want a different form of communication, and I believe that's true.
Right.
Again, can I control it? No. Like I do in my experience working with children and now this, I do think, no, if you're consistent enough in behavior, if you're consistent enough in like your approach to things, yes, change will happen. How quickly? I don't know. Right. But I do think there's something to be said for consistency in things.
Yeah.
If you're consistently vulnerable with somebody, it will indicate to them, oh, so we're doing things differently now. Right. And at some point, maybe they'll get to a place where they realize I can't do this vulnerability. And at some point it'll create some kind of internal reflection. That's my hope. But, and so then it was, so like, what's the ultimate goal? Like when we say, yeah, go talk to someone about this, why is it we're telling people to do that? Because clearly my friend, and I actually have some answers to this, but I'm obviously curious what you guys think about it. Because I thought, no, I know why I ask people to do it. And it's not because I think, well, if you go do this, she's going to think different. But, to my friend, it was just kind of this is pointless. Like don't tell me to go talk to my spouse because it's not going to do anything. Okay, then why am I like? When we ask someone to do that? What is it? What's the benefit?
I think number one is justifying my existence as a therapist. What do we need you
I
for,
need
Rob?
this
So
to
I can
not
tell
work.
you. I need you to tell. I need to be able to tell you what you already know, and then pay me for it, please.
Dude, and even as you're saying, the whole time you've been saying, why don't you just go talk to her? I keep hearing Cassandra's voice from Wayne's World talking to Garth. Why don't you just go talk to her? Talk to her. Talk to her. And then it's like the boom, boom, bam. The Foxy song comes on.
Such a. Sometimes it cracks me up, Matt. The movies that live in your head. Like I was thinking about this morning, thinking Matt watches Lord of the Rings a lot, and then I think about Wayne's World. I'm like, I've seen both those movies, and I love both of them. And I'm like, but those were like really defining movies for you. Like
They were.
Wayne's World. All right, so it's an interesting question because I think especially a lot of clients, not just men, but a lot of clients they want to feel something tangible, like something action oriented. And we are very much a cause effect type society that says, if I do this, this will happen. So I will clarify usually, like I have a different reason in my head for why I want you to go have this conversation. And admittedly, that's hopefully in my office. If they're both there, we're going to have a conversation in my office. Even if I don't say turn to him and say this, even if it's the three of us talking, I'm okay with that. I do that too. But like I had a kid, I shouldn't say kid. He is like 22,
He's
21.
a kid.
I don't know. Okay, fine.
He's young
getting
enough to be my kid. He's a kid.
He's getting into you're old. He's getting into the field.
Dang it.
And he's asked me some questions. He asked me recently about, he said, we were in a conversation and people were talking about what's like are the necessary elements of a good marriage. And I said, he listed off, like they said, common interests, shared goals, communication. I can't remember the other two or one, but he's like, what do you think? And I said, really, to make a good marriage and to know that like that marriage is going to last, I told him there's mainly two things I look for. Yes, I would change it from shared goals to shared values. Because I think goals can shift and change, but hopefully your values are consistent and they line up. But I said the things that matter most to me are communication and then adaptability, like being able to adapt to new communication, adapt to how my partner's different now than they used to be, or all these things. But we talked a little bit about communication and thinking about why communication. And I will say actually one of the most basic reasons when they say, like, why would I go talk about this? I think because otherwise you're walking around in this scenario where information is necessary, but you're not putting it all out there. Like you can't hold the information back and expect to have outcomes that you would want to have. I remember sitting with a financial advisor and it was like, he said something about, looking at your financial, stuff. It looks like this and this. And he's like, unless you guys have stuff I don't know about. And my wife and I were both like, we totally have stuff you don't know about. Like,
We got $500 under our mattress.
And then I thought, why would I not tell him? Like, what else could he do if I said, well, here's my full scope. Here's everything that you could see. And would that change things in some way or another? That's one reason is I think you can't expect to have the kinds of things you want in your relationship with information still sitting hidden, especially when for a lot of people, it's like, that's significant information. I don't mean to say that like you killed your neighbor when you were 14. I mean, that's significant, but I mean significant information like, hey, I'm not happy right now. Like the idea of saying, well, I'm just going to sit on it and be quiet about it. It's like, why? But the second reason to me off the top of my head is, and what I say most often to clients is, I'm not telling you to say this to them because they will respond the way you want. I need you to lose that idea. And that's partly why I want them to do it. I want them to go and say something that is honest and hopefully, the way I want them to say it, not like, you've been really mean to me lately. Instead saying, I've felt a little bit rejected lately, or I feel a little like you don't really like me around. That's a little different than saying you've been mean. One's accusatory and attacking. And so I think I want you to do it because it matters to yourself and your own brain to do it. It's validating to be able to say to somebody, even in your own head, like, no, this is what I feel. So it helps you feel more confident in what's going on for you, and you can keep putting the information out there. But also what you're describing, Mike, I think it is the only way this would change in the direction you want it to go is if you start changing it. So if you want to have a relationship that is open in communication, you can't do that by closing down if the communication doesn't go well. So go do the thing you're saying you want to have. Like, and if they don't often, well, actually most people will say we want good communication. And I think, well, then go talk to each other and let it be bad for a while. Like you're figuring things out. But I think you can't have the thing you want unless you're willing to do the thing that you say you want, even if what you want is closeness and connection. Although I will say, even recently, I've had some sessions that were really valuable, kind of pivotal sessions for couples where I kind of made them stop talking and just physically touch and try to communicate things through physical touch. So I think I don't think the answer honestly is always go have a conversation. Sometimes the answer can be stop talking and just feel what's in the room right now. But in short, that's my 2 answers. Maybe I have more later.
Well, I was going to say, I want to hear what Matt has to say, but
I don't.
Fine. I still do. And you made me in charge of this episode, so suck it.
I can throw darts over your head, Rob, and communicate that way.
Matt was the dart champion today. He had 0 points. I had 232, and that's
even
not good.
even I beat Rob. I wasn't even technically playing
by proxy.
So what that means is Matt beat me twice. Continue, Mike.
No, so like I do have some questions to go with that, but again, I want to hear
Matt first.
What Matt has to say. Yeah, before I come back to those things.
I maybe would want to talk like to your friend client. I can't remember if it was a friend or a client that you brought up at the beginning.
It was me.
I have a friend who I'm not closely related to. No, but he sounds like he is really deflated, and maybe he's tried everything that he knows how, and there's probably times where he did a really good job of trying to talk to his partner and it didn't go well. And so yeah, he's probably in a place where nothing really sounds hopeful or helpful.
Yeah.
And maybe he is in a place where like being vulnerable is not on his mind. Maybe it's more like, I want some recognition that I've tried, and I need you to come my way a little bit before maybe I'm ready to do this again. And I think that I think maybe you guys did an episode about like, what if you're the only one trying?
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of times where you miss each other, right? Like you have been thinking about talking about something. You've done a lot of like, internal work about it. And then you come to your partner with probably unrealistic expectations about how ready they will be for that conversation. And they could be on the other end of the cycle where maybe they, a couple days ago, tried to do the same thing with you and you weren't in that place. So you kind of shut them down. So now they're saying, what's the point? Right. And then like you come to them ready to talk, and then you get the same result. So I think it's important to just recognize that in a lot of situations, both people are really trying, and you're trying to communicate. You're just almost at the exact opposite point in your cycle from each other. And so you just kind of have this really painful rolling down a hill, right? Where you're like playing your cycle out. But there are situations that I think it's helpful to point out where maybe your partner really is not going to be somebody you can talk to vulnerably. And I don't think it's wise to assume that that's the case before you've really tried it a number of different ways. But those situations do exist. So, I just want to say that that's not like totally out of the question. But when you're thinking about talking, most of us think that we did exactly what we were supposed to do and it didn't work. But the way that your client or friend is talking to you about it is very likely pretty different than the way he did it with his partner. Not because he's like a bad dude and doesn't know how to communicate, but it's a totally different set of circumstances where when he talks to you, he can say, I can speak openly and I know you're going to listen to me and I know you're going to validate me.
No
Yeah.
With
pressure.
her, it hasn't happened that way. So I'm already going in like feeling like I shouldn't have to do this in some ways, or really hoping that this is going to be the exception. It's like there's way too much investment for an outcome already. And then when it's proven or disproven, you really only have like one, maybe two statements in your wheelhouse before you crumble and shut down. And I think realistically, when you're starting something like this, you need to make sure you can roll with like 3, 4, maybe even 5 rejections or dismissals, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the only way to do that is to come into it anticipating that and then saying, when this happens, this is how I'm going to respond. And then she's probably going to say this next. Then I'm probably going to have to say this. But if I go 3, 4 rounds and she hasn't really moved from that place, then yeah, back up and say, well, I guess we're not ready to have this conversation, right? But a lot of people, you know, if you're in a close relationship and you're having vulnerable conversations and you already have kind of some of the basic things generally going okay, you know, people can lean into that after a few little like, hey, I'm trying to talk to you, right? But I think we way underutilize like not necessarily visualizations, but just thinking it through, role playing. Like I find it helpful to say to my clients, look, you're going to say this and then you'll probably get this back, right? And then you'll have to say this and then you'll probably get this. And they're like, yeah, that's exactly what happens, right? And it's like, okay, so instead of saying because she does that, I'm not going to make an attempt, let's get better at figuring out how to roll with that and how to speak to that. And you know, it's not your job to do your emotional work and hers, but you're just trying to increase the likelihood that something will open up. And when you've done your part, if it still doesn't open up, it's maybe not going to right then, right? But if it does, now you have an experience where you've broken through some of those barriers and expectations, like negative expectations. And maybe you've got, you know, a new piece of your relationship history you can lean on now and say, hey, remember when we had that conversation? That's all I'm trying to do now. It's just like yesterday when I was trying to talk to you, right? I feel like I'm getting the same response from you, but I really want to talk like we did yesterday, right? You just have this point to kind of like anchor yourself back to.
Wait. Because I wanted to add on to something you said that, or maybe, I don't know. At first I was thinking disagree with something you said, but I think maybe it's just add on because I do sometimes tell people, I don't want you to walk into this conversation having planned out everything she's going to say because it's going to be really hard not to come in defensively.
Mm-hmm.
Now, but then as you kept talking, I thought, oh no, that is something different, right? To say, okay, what happens if she, you know, comes back angrily or upset?
Yeah.
So then you can kind of prep to say, and I want to keep my clients in that realm focused on like, okay, well, that's going to freak me out. Okay, what do you do if you're freaked out?
Mm-hmm.
I want you to stay consistent with, unless you can pause and say, wait, did I say that wrong? Because maybe I did. Maybe when I was trying to say, hey, you hurt my feelings, I said, you're a jerk. Then she came angry. So it's like, okay, hold on. No, I'm just trying to say I hurt you know, my feelings are hurt. Can we talk about that? And she comes back again. So I wanted to keep loosely the idea of like, how do you navigate when this doesn't go the way you want it to go so that you can kind of, it does help, I think, to have those kind of role play ideas in your head to think, okay, I know this may not go how I want it to go. I know how to adapt. I know, and you can trust yourself a little bit. I don't want them to pre-think she's going to say this and then this. And because sometimes for a lot of clients, it's like, well, then forget it before they even had the conversation. And I do think I don't want that part to happen. And I think that I guess too often it does. And there was something else, but I forgot what it was. So, Mike, now you may speak.
Thanks. No, that's actually what I was going to say, right? Like there's that fine line of figuring out how to, because like there's a, I don't know. Sometimes I feel like I'm telling my clients, you know, well, you should prepare for the worst. And I think, no, because I don't want you to be a pessimist about everything. Like I don't want you to assume it's never going to work. But there is, I think, a lot of value. You know this person that you're going to go have this conversation with, you know them. You're pretty familiar how that conversation's going to go. And so I think to your point, Matt, yeah, use that to your advantage, right?
But not in a bad way.
Well, so that's where it's like,
I know you were going to say that. And then, no, I think it is all in how you pick it up, right? Because if I pick it up as this is the first barrier that I'm trying to kind of stay calm and get through, instead of if this happens, I'm out,
Yeah.
Well, I think a second part of that is is to say if they respond that way, and it may not be in that moment, kind of like what you're saying, Matt. Maybe it's like, maybe now's not the time to have this conversation. And when you come back to it, you can say like, hey, it feels like we kind of got stuck here.
Mhm.
Like to think if that's his or her response, why is that the response? Like, because then it's not they're maliciously coming at you. Maybe they feel attacked.
Mhm.
So I do think that's where it's helpful to say, well, think through this for a second. Like, how would it go if it went like this? And if she responded like that, how would you respond? And why is she responding like that? Is she just really angry and she's just in a bad mood? Or is it like she had a bad day? Would that change to say, okay, I can push through that barrier to say, let's keep going because I know this is a factor, but I want to keep moving in this.
Yeah.
No, and that's I like that way of looking at it, right? This idea of you're going to run into, barriers. You're going to run into things that will, if you let them, stop the conversation before it actually happens. And identifying what those potentially are helps you kind of say, okay, no, I kind of expected this. So it lets you stay in that calm place. Like, I really like that way of looking at it, as opposed to, well, I'm going to say this and then she's going to get mad. No, it's one of them creates that feeling of tension and animosity. And the other one says, no, I knew this was coming. It's now become part of the process. Right? Like, no, this is the process that we have to work through to get where I want to go. And so I just have to figure out how to get past this barrier that just came up that I expected. I knew it was going to come.
Right.
I like that a lot, actually. The other thing, and then I want to come back to some of the things you were saying, Rob, is I think there's a lot to be said for timing of these conversations, right? Like, a lot of times we will have it because, like, for example, the conversations about sex will often happen when I've just got shut down, right? Like, I just got rejected, so now, we never, right? Yeah, okay, it's going to be hard to have a meaningful conversation on the heels of that, because to her, it has a huge potential of feeling like she's getting attacked. It's no longer a concern, it's a reaction. Whereas if you have that conversation, as unnatural as it will be outside of that moment, right, on a Tuesday afternoon, hey, can we talk about what's going on in our sexual relationship, right? It's no longer a reaction to a negative experience. It's a concern. It'll shift what that feels like for the listener, because now I'm not reacting to getting shut down. I'm not reacting to getting yelled at. I'm not reacting to whatever. I'm simply saying, hey, I've noticed this thing and I kind of want to talk about it. And I want to do it when, I'm in an emotionally stable place. And when I've just gotten yelled at, or when I've just gotten my hand smacked or whatever, I'm not in an emotionally stable place. Like, I'm not in a place where I'm going to manage this conversation well. So I'm going to come back to it when I can. I think often that can make a huge difference in how that conversation goes forward, because they're not coming into it defensively. And then there is a lot to be said. Like, I think you were saying this before, Matt, to this idea of, maybe it was Rob, we've sat and turned this thing over in our head for so long. And often that's the first time they're hearing it. As a teacher, this was always hilarious to me to watch in class, because I would watch these teachers that would, like, ask this question that they've spent a week or however long, preparing the lesson. And they're, like, flabbergasted because no one has an immediate response. And I'm like, you just brought up a really personal, meaningful thing that you've pondered for a week now. They're hearing it for the first time. You got to give them a chance to sit with it and figure out what it is for them. And I think the same thing can be true here. You've spent time working this stuff over in your head. They're getting hit with it often for the first time. And so they need a moment to kind of sit and think, okay, what's sometimes even what conversation are we having, right? Like, it's Tuesday afternoon and we're talking about we haven't had sex in 4 days or 5 days or a week or 2 weeks. Like, why is he talking about sex now? He didn't even try. Like, no one, there wasn't, and so I think there is that idea of like, no, you got to make sure that they have time to kind of process what you're bringing to them. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's something we rarely, if ever, start a conversation with. Like, hey, I want to talk to you about X. Is now a good time?
Mm-hmm.
I think we probably avoid that for some good reasons, because usually it comes out like, hey, can we talk?
Here's some bad news.
And then all of a
I
sudden
got.
it's like, you know, but
Yeah.
I think that like testing the waters a bit in an overt way, instead of just kind of like we were talking about last week or the week before, that like beating around the bush, you know, like,
Last week.
I want to talk about this, you know, are you in a place to do that, or should we do it, you know, at another time? um that, I mean, you always run the risk there of your partner saying, no, not right now, no, not right now, no, not right now. And I think it, you know, it's right to say, after 4 or 5 of those, hey, I've tried to talk to you about this like 4 or 5 times, and there's never a good time, and it's really important. So when can we talk about it, right? This is, you know, this is something that's a priority, and we need to have a conversation. So, but I do think there's a piece of like, being able to feel like I'm consenting to a conversation, right? That doesn't feel like it's sprung on me, because I don't think
Yeah.
anybody reacts well to things being sprung on them, and when we're in the mode of like springing it on our partner because we don't really feel comfortable with the conversation anyway, and we're anticipating it going poorly, the layers that our feelings are buried under are pretty deep and hard to sort through. So the first statement, oftentimes, even if the first statement is, this is how I feel, there's probably a because you attached to it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Instead of like a really like somebody really speaking for themselves, like, this is something that has happened between the two of us, and these are the thoughts and feelings I've had about it, right? And I don't want to sit with those forever, because, you know, I want to work this out with you. So what are, you know, what are your thoughts and feelings about this too? And then just kind of getting into a conversation where the point is coming together, versus like maybe like more like bringing an injury to you that I'm still looking at as solely your fault and you're defensive about. I know this is getting more maybe into like how to bring up an issue, but maybe your friend was talking maybe about something different. Like, I just have these feelings maybe about myself or something else, and I just haven't found a way to share it with you, because every time I tell you about it, maybe you judge it or make me feel dumb for thinking that way about something that's important to me, or I don't know.
Well, but that's the thing. I do think, right, like that in and of itself is an issue,
Yeah.
right? Like to me, it feels like, yeah, where you may have been talking about like a specific issue. I think, no, most of this stuff, if it's not addressed, becomes a specific issue, right? For him, the reasons for not addressing it have become an issue. And so there is a lot to be said for that, of like, no, I think it's a fairly general application, I guess.
I think there's something else too in this, like going back to, it's kind of building off something you guys are both saying, but also going back to that question of why do we say so often have a conversation? I do think like there is a fine line too of like, okay, if you're going to plan for this, plan for it and then shut it down. Like, don't, Mike, you mentioned something that was like, you're going to think about it forever. It's like, don't think about it forever. You can morph it into too many things. Once you know, okay, this is what I want to say, and I understand she may say this or this, and this is kind of how I want to work through those obstacles, with the end goal being maybe this thing we're talking about, content-wise, being resolved, but also I want to change the way we function as a couple in terms of our communication. But if you spend so much time thinking about it, it's really hard not to start dwelling into or slipping into, it's just going to go bad. And either I'll talk myself out of it, or I'm going to come in and say out of nowhere, like, I told you I never want to speak to your mother again. I'd be like, wait, what? What are we talking about? And the conversation was supposed to be about, are we going to, New York for Thanksgiving or whatever it is?
Right.
But one of the other reasons that I want people to do this is because if we go back to things we've talked about with mindfulness and being aware of what's going on for you, I can tell you to do that in my office. Like I can tell you, hey, we can practice some meditation type things and understanding and regulating what's going on for you. It's very different though if I shove you into the deep end and say, now swim. Like I need you to be able to go into this moment and figure out, okay, what was I feeling and why was that my reaction? If I'm working with somebody individually and I never see the couple, then I can only really work with you and what's going on for you. So the work is up to you. The other partner is either not ready for change or not wanting to come in and change in this way or whatever it is. So the work is up to you. And part of that work is going to be, how do you avoid getting this place where just because you didn't get the outcome you thought you wanted or you were hoping for, you shut down or you blow up or you get angry? Because then the conversation will never shift. And if I can't get you to go into the fire, you'll never get used to it. And you're going to have to get used to it and know that it's not so bad. You can come in and say, I don't know where this conversation is going to go. I know it could go here and here, but I know how to adapt to that. You can only know how to adapt if you know what's going on for you. Otherwise, it becomes so reactive so quickly that our midbrain takes over and it just floods everything. So I need that as a practice ground to say, please go engage in something that will make your anxiety go up.
And that's like one of the things that has, right, something you said, and going back to what you were saying before, the three of us are trained relationally, right? Like we view problems in terms of systems, not necessarily individuals. But often, the people we work with don't necessarily see it that way. But two, it can also make a lot of what we will encourage people to do because we think, well, yeah, like the problem's the relationship. It's not you. It's the way that, right, things are functioning and interacting here. And so some of the stuff will encourage them to do. And this was kind of one of the things that some of the stuff you were saying before, Rob, I thought, yeah, but some of that only works if you're dealing with the couple, right? Like I can tell the guy, like, to say to my friend, hey, like I really want you to just kind of go and like be physically present, and like that's great, but if she smacks his hand, then that's all done, right? Because she's not necessarily a willing participant. He is, because he's who I'm working with. She's not. And so it becomes like, right, like, okay, well then how do I address that? How do I say something more than just have a conversation? And it really, like, as I've been thinking about it, a lot of it comes back to, I think you guys have both said things in this area. It's not, you're not having the conversation for her or for the other person. You're not having the conversation because it's guaranteed to create change. You're having it to give yourself a voice. Because inevitably, as we work with individuals, one of the things, and I'm, if you guys disagree with what I'm saying, disagreeing's fun. Jenner thought I was too angry in the one episode I did up here 2 weeks ago.
The one about deprivation?
My friend,
funny.
on the other hand, thought I was the perfect amount of argumentative.
Oh.
But Jenner thought I was too argumentative. But I think often as we work with individuals, one of the things, at least that I find, is that one of the things they struggle with is feeling like they've lost their voice, they've lost who they are, right? Like I don't feel like I can speak and be heard. I don't feel like I can present these things that are strong and important to me, or that I used to have as strong and important. I feel like they've gotten buried, right? And men in particular, we've talked about that. We often, there's a pattern of men kind of morphing themselves to be the version of a man or a husband or a father that their wife wants them to be, mm-hmm. or that they think their wife wants them to be, right? Often they're mistaken in that, but that's what they're doing. And so often with me, when I encourage them to go have a conversation, it really, a lot of it is because, no, I want you to feel like you have a voice. And because like there was a stretch, I was, I don't know, frustrated with something going on in the marriage. not like frustrated's too strong a word. Um, it just felt stuck, right? And I remember Jenner one day asking me, she's like, "So do you want to talk about it?" And I said, "Has anything changed?" And she goes, "No." And I said, "There's nothing to talk about then." Like this is a me thing, right? Like at this point, this is a me problem to solve, and so I thought, no, this is a stupid conversation to have because it's not going to go anywhere. And we ended up talking for 30 minutes about the thing I said we weren't going to talk about. And at the end of it, I felt better. And so there is part of it where I'm like, no, I encourage people to talk about it because I know that giving voice to it shifts how we view it. It shifts how we interact with it. And so when we verbalize it, when we have to say it out loud, right, we're forced to view it more realistically than when we let it sit in our brain and get twisted. When we let it sit in our brain and get twisted, we're not necessarily, well, I've lost both of your images, fellas.
Yeah, it's fine. Keep going. Matt's imageless for me, but he's still here.
Yeah. That's good to know. I was worried you were both gone. No, but recognizing, right, this idea of well, now I forgot what I was saying. That's just
well,
about
if nothing
right.
else, I think it matters that's one more benefit to me of having conversations is that it does do a lot to connect us. Like it's not always because you're going to resolve this thing. No. I don't need you to look at this conversation thinking if I have this conversation, she'll finally load the dishes the way I want her to.
Right.
It's saying we understand each other differently, and it makes me feel more on the same page with you, even though we might disagree with each other.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I do think that's an important piece to this is as a couple, it's okay that you don't agree on everything. Like there's no rule, there's no anything that says you have to be in 100% agreement all the time. It goes back to the shared values. Yeah, there are those core values that I think it's going to be really hard if you don't have them. If you don't share the value, that's going to be a difficult road to walk. Not impossible, just right. Difficult. But with a handful, like, you use the example of loading the dishwasher. Okay, so you don't approach it the same way. That's fine. You don't have to approach it the same way. Some of that becomes learning, well, can I handle how it gets done when it's not me? And if the answer is no, then I guess you're volunteering to do it all the time. Like if you can't handle that, then I guess you're the one doing the dishes because you can't force the change, right? So yeah, I'm feeling rambly. I don't know. Closing thoughts, fellas?
No, I've said this probably too many times before, but I just love the concept because it's simultaneously like a call out, but like sets you free in really important ways. Mm-hmm. So much of relationships is about like learning to speak up for yourself while not making a big deal about the fact that you spoke up for yourself, right? Like that's a concept from a
last episode we talked about that.
Yeah, a therapist named Brent Atkinson that has done a lot of good stuff. And I like that's your job. Who else is going to do that, right? And when we get too much in the mindset of our partner is going to maybe know how we think and feel or respond to that without us identifying it and expressing it, then we have all these reasons to be upset and feel like we've been unjustly dealt with, right? So some people choose around that really essential part of the relationship to go quiet and say things in their head like, well, they don't listen to me anyway, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm going to go tell somebody who does. And other people say, you're going to listen to me and you're going to sit down and I'm going to tell you about it for 4 hours. And like both of those ways are never going to be effective. Then and you will end up telling yourself that it's your partner's fault. But there's so much liberation when you let go of the fact that like relationships aren't about being with somebody who just anticipates your every need and like alleviates you of the responsibility for thinking for yourself and feeling for yourself and expressing it. And I don't say that as like, here's your mandate in a relationship, but like, this is really your opportunity and the growth that is meant to happen in a relationship. So, you're like the degree to which you'll get close to people, I think hinges pretty heavily on the ability you have to speak openly for who you are and what you think. And that's probably why intimacy is really hard, because most of us don't do a great job of saying effectively. There are people that say it, right? And I think that's, you'll hear people all the time say, I have no problem speaking up for myself. It's like, well, how does it go? Right? I mean, you accomplish the task of speaking up for yourself, but nobody wants to talk to you.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to be close to you, or, well, I don't know, I should probably put my feelings aside. And, and it's like, you're not really putting them aside, right? They're in there, and they're either like causing you to get more and more unhealthy yourself while still trying to be accommodating, or you're packing in like loads of resentment that's going to erupt someday, right? Or already is starting to. So I think like Rob was saying at the very beginning, do it for those reasons, right? Like, I'm telling you what I think and feel because that's what I'm supposed to do in a relationship so that I can grow. And if you're doing the same thing and we are working together, then we'll grow together. But that's almost like the secondary concern and outcome.
Yeah.
But that really does take care of itself in some ways.
Yeah.
When two partners are doing that, right? Like it doesn't take care of itself, but it kind of like takes on the energy of what you started with your individual statements. But yeah, it's something that I think it's really hard. And so we like to assign it to other people in our lives.
Yeah. My closing thought actually is similar. Like, I think I'll keep it brief, but I think the thing that I wish more people understood, at least as far as my approach to therapy and what I hope more people do therapist wise or therapy wise, is that I'm not sure. I'm happy to help you solve this or that problem, but I'm actually in this because I want to make you a better person, like a better version of yourself. Like, so I have some grand expectations. It's one of the reasons why we do this podcast. Like, I believe men can be better. And this is how you become better. Not because you do this and then all your wildest dreams will come true with your wife. You do this because you want to be a better version of yourself. So you have conversations because that is a better version of yourself. And that doesn't mean to say you share everything that comes in your mind and that everything merits a conversation, because some things don't. But there's probably, I would say, with any given dude, I could pull out of the 10 things that could have, should I have a conversation about this or not? Probably I'd say 8 of those, 7 to 8 of those. Yes, you should have a conversation about those. Those other 2, you can talk about those, kind of like what Matt's saying, where it's like, advocate for yourself or share, but don't make a big deal out of it. You're sharing because I share.
Yeah.
And I think that matters. It matters a lot to know that when you need to speak up for yourself, you can speak up for yourself. That's why you have these conversations. Is it always going to go your way? No. Does anything anywhere ever exist like that? No. Why would you expect that from your relationship? If I said it right, you should give me what I want. That doesn't make any sense. You say it right because that's the kind of person I want to be. So that, my friends, is the answer. And Mike looked off, and so catch us next time on the Man Space. Ham on! Dude, I just see you guys ever played that game on Jackbox. You ever played Jackbox?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So we just played a recent, I don't know, I guess it was like an updated version, Jackbox 4 or something.
Mm-hmm.
There's like
Played
9
some
of
game
them
at-
now.
Yeah, we played some game I'd never played before that I was like, man, it was like a 90s theme. I don't know why, but it also was funny to me that we called it 90s because it looked like a Super Nintendo game cartridge from the early 90s, right? Anyway, but all the stuff inside it looks super 80s.
Mm-hmm.
Like that game Rad Racer. Remember Rad Racer?
Oh yeah.
Or
Yeah.
Pole Division?
Yeah. Pole position.
Pole Position.
Pole position. That one was rad.
I love that game. But
I can smell pizza just hearing you say that.
But we at the very first question, it was like, come up with a whatever, and they'd take these 2 responses and put them head to head, and you vote.
Mm-hmm.
The first question was, which we're playing, me and my wife and my 3 kids. The first question was, what would be a good podcast to make love to? So of course I put the Man Space down, and of course it won. But it does feel like, because my kids were like, well, you learn while you're doing it. But I also felt like, I mean, obviously the joke or the questions intended to be a joke, but it felt like I sure as crap hope someone is not turning on a podcast and being, honey, it started. Let's
Especially
go.
ours.
That Rob guy's really turning me off.
So, Mike, I don't know why, but one of my first questions, I guess, not necessarily questions, but first things I like to experience when I move somewhere is, what's the grocery store situation like?
You
It
don't
sucks.
have HEB.
Yeah, no HEB. That's terrible. Oh, have I told you guys about trash tags?
No, but apparently they have a QT as you sip.
They do.
Okay.
It's down the street from my house. It's delightful.
What are trash tags?
So in Kansas City, they don't give you garbage bins.
Yeah, they don't here either.
Oh, in Houston, they don't?
They finally started doing recycling.
Yeah,
but
they do recycling here.
Yeah, we have to buy our own.
So I can buy one, but I can't put it on the street.
Without a trash
Oh, okay.
tag.
So you were going to tell us about this
Yeah.
last time. Yeah.
So we're allowed 2 bags per week.
Dude.
Yeah, Mike just made the peace sign in his phone. Your computer
Oh,
picked it up.
seriously?
Wait,
Is that why the
have-
balloons went up?
Have you seen the awesome part? This one's great. Oh, it's
Nothing.
not gonna come on.
Do this one. Do the. Have you seen that?
I Love
can't do
Yous
it. My
or
my
Hard
laptop
Rock?
doesn't- No, it's Hard Rock and it's supposed to shoot out lasers.
Oh, I want to see.
It happens sometimes in my sessions with clients on my iPad. Oh,
Yep, there it is.
Whoa. Okay, so these are all
this is
enticements to go to YouTube and watch this so you can actually see.
Apple. It won't work on yours. It's Apple.
Yeah, it's an Apple
Right.
thing.
But mine.
So I have to wait a second, and I'll do the one that's happened to me a couple of times during session. Like I don't know how I figured it out, but it happened once during session, and I was like, "Oh crap!"
I did this or
Yeah.
something happened and they thought it was
If
that. And
you
it comes
wait-
up like a thought bubble with
Yep.
a thumbs up.
Yeah.
Mm.
So
And I was like,
here's-
I was telling my clients, like, I think somebody hacked into our session.
here's the one that I got. I got the balloons during like a particularly emotional moment with this guy, where I was like first and then second, and like balloons started. I was like, "Oh, you've got to be kidding me!" And then with a client, I was messing around, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm still not gonna do it."
So wait, finish your story.
It shoots fireworks behind my heads.
Tell us your trash tag.
trash
So-
tags.
So yeah, so you're allowed 2 bags of trash per week, and if you put them in a bin, they won't pick them up.
Two
you have to
They
bags
have
of
to be
put the
just
trash.
bags
bags
sitting
on
out
the
where the
curb.
raccoons can tear
Yeah.
into them and
Yep.
spill them all over your
Which
street.
apparently they don't really worry about that much here because whatever.
Dude,
Um,
2 bags is very minimal.
yeah. So what we currently do, we
How big
go
can the
and-
bags be?
like 40 pounds.
I'd be finding my loopholes. Anyway, go ahead.
Well, so this is what we do. We have gone and bought the large size Costco kitchen, the like Costco black bags, right?
Yeah.
I can fit 3 kitchen bags in one black bag. So
Okay.
now my 2 is up to 6, right? Like I can get 6 bags in those 2 black bags. But we just moved. Last
Yeah.
week we had 11 bags of trash, black bags of trash.
So what do you do with that?
So they
wait.
sell what they call trash tags.
Oh,
And you go to one of the grocery stores. In this case, it's called the Price Chopper, which don't let
I've
their
seen
name fool
those.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're expensive.
Yeah.
The Price Chopper is like Smith's or Randall's. I'm
it's like if I had one and they cut it, now I have 2. The price is double.
Right, exactly. You go and you buy trash tags for $2.50 each, and you can
Jeez.
put up to a total of 10 tagged bags in addition to your 2. So I could every week have 12 bags if I wanted to pay $25 a week. Twice a year, this is my favorite part. Twice a year, they have what they call their trash amnesty week.
Amnesty.
Christmas, right?
Yeah,
And 4th of July.
that's the one
Boom.
where you can put out as much
Amnesty.
trash as you want. Yep, it's an amnesty week.
I mean, we
So-
have that in my neighborhood. We have Round Rock does it. They do a twice
The
a year,
big
like,
pickup.
large. Yeah,
Yeah.
you can put anything out on the curb.
Yeah, no, with these guys,
Basically.
it's just an unlimited number of bags.
That's so weird.
Yeah.
It's only twice a year for. Well, I guess it depends on the company because it doesn't depend on the landfill. Apparently, it's whoever services your
Mhm.
Yeah.
trash needs. But
Right.
when we first moved here, it was 2 pickups a week. It still is, but
You guys get
but-
trash picked up twice a week?
twice a week, recycling once a week, and
Wow.
so so Thursdays at that time were large pickup days. So you could chuck like a couch out there, a bathroom vanity, like a tree,
Houston,
and they would
has
take
some-
it all. And then whoever we switched to, who apparently I heard through the grapevine is like the mayor's brother-in-law's trash company, and they suck.
Mhm.
So then they started cutting back. Like you can still throw big stuff away, but it's got to be there's like if
Limits.
it's branches, they have to all be bundled up, or different things like that. But yeah, they'll take anything, and it coming from Lubbock, which you wouldn't think is like you wouldn't think is much different, I guess. Right. But the thing I loved about Lubbock is it was all in the alley behind your house, and you shared a dumpster with like 3 houses, and so there was never any trash out front. And then I roll into what is a nicer neighborhood than we lived in Lubbock, and there's couches out on people's lawns and like garbage everywhere, and yeah,
dude, that's what I think is so funny about Houston in particular. Is it does feel like when I come here, like this is the quote unquote Wild West. Like there's no rules to anything. It's like, hey, you want to put that McDonald's next to your neighbor's house? Do it.
Yeah. Or the famous strip club next to the Neiman Marcus.
Yeah. There's no zoning laws. It's freaking hilarious. I think it's funny because when people tell me stories about living just in other cities or in other states, it feels like it's like another country over there.
Yeah. No, it's super weird.
Trash tags, man, and amnesty for your garbage.
Amnesty.
It is the weirdest.
Does that mean you can put bodies in there and it's amnesty
right?
still?
I mean, who's going to say?
That's a Houston thing. Houston don't care.
Yeah,
all right, well.
Yeah, it's super, super fascinating trash tags. And apparently they sell a crap ton of them. But I also don't pay for trash services.
Oh, well, that's where they get you.
Right. But I'm like, I would rather pay, because I asked my wife, I'm like, so what, because I never know what we pay for our bills. I'm like, so what were we paying in Texas? She goes, I don't know, like $40 a month.
So essentially that's what you're doing now, but I wouldn't call what you have for free a service. I'd call it a trash courtesy.
Right.
It's not really a service if they're only taking 2 bags.
Yeah. So I'm just like, I'd rather pay $40 a month and you guys give me a bin.
Yeah.
Like I'm going to spend that money anyway.
Yeah, but if you found a way to put 6 bags into 2 bags, then who cares?
Wow, us next week with 8 bags.
Go back to the 1980s and get a trash compactor.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
40 pounds though. Remember?
Oh, are they weighing it?
No, that's the thing. They don't weigh it. Like I had one trash out there today. I'm like, this is probably pushing the 40-pound limit.
Yeah, they just took it.
See, that was the change that happened between the first trash service we had and the second one. First guys were like hulking out there, picking up freaking couches with one arm, and then this next place has like real scrawny guys. And I put out like a bag of sheetrock, and he was like, and just put it back down and left it. I was like, buddy, I got that out to the curb. You can heft it into the truck.
That's rad.
That would be me. Oh, by the way, one more thing I'll say. As I'm driving down, for listeners who don't know, I drive down, some people in Austin and Houston will know this road, but I was driving down 290 from Austin down to Houston. And every time I drive by there, I usually have Mike with me, and over on the side near
Mike's Taxidermy.
I want to say it's near Brenham, maybe, or maybe it's near Bucky's.
I think it's past Brenham.
So maybe down near closer to Busey's. But as I'm driving past, there's a thing that says Michael's Taxidermy. And I was like, hey, man, you're taxidermy. Today I drove by and they were like, well, if Michael's gone, we're gone. Because they closed up shop. It still says taxidermy on the side of the building, but there's no more Michael's Taxidermy.
It's not Michael's Taxidermy?
And that thing, you could tell from the sign, that's been there forever.
Yeah.
Maybe they taxidermied Michael.
Go
inside.
It comes with the building. If you want to buy this, you have to take this guy who's been stuffed. We hope you enjoyed the episode. Please remember to
rate
and
review.
Please, we desperately need it.